The right people in the right roles can be the difference between chaos and success. And perhaps the most extreme example of that is the role of Chief Operating Officer, the COO, as they play a pivotal role in bringing order to your operations and reducing stress and paving the way for significant achievements and growth. Now, our guest today is no stranger to the impact that a stellar COO can bring. Because joining me is Emma King, and she's the driving force behind CHS Events, and as an experienced leader and CEO of CHS Events, but also now as the co-founder of the COO Accelerator. Her journey is just a masterclass in leveraging a great COO and how to make that work really well. And she's not just sharing theoretical concepts. Emma is going to provide practical strategies and personal stories that bring her wealth of experience and practical insights on why she believes having a top-notch COO isn't just beneficial, but a business necessity. Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual, and I'm joined by Emma King. Welcome, Emma.
Hi, Alexis. I'm very excited to be here talking about my favourite subject.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. And particularly I want to look at what's been perhaps a transformational moment in your journey to becoming the founder and CEO of CHS Events, and what are the sorts of challenges that you face that kind of have shaped your approach to leadership and seeing with clarity this importance of this split of CEO and COO.
Yeah, as you were introducing me, and thank you for a wonderful introduction, I was sat here thinking, it wasn't always that way. It had to be really bad before it got really good. And that's an interesting first question, because when you start a business and you become CEO, you have no idea at what point you're going to need to have that amazing, stellar second in command COO. For some people, it might be ops director, but basically the role is that second in command that runs the business for you so that you can focus on leveraging and what have you. So for me, it was the night before a strategic planning away a couple of days. And we were with my business coach at the time, who you know very well, Kevin. And we were sat and he was saying to me, okay, what's the outcome for these 2 days? What do you want to do? And I was a little bit stressed, and it took me hours. And I was like, I'm getting nowhere, Kevin. I just don't know what I want. And then in the end, I kind of did this exasperated, and I had read the book Traction beforehand and the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I was like, I just want a business that runs like that book Traction. And he was like, that's great, because we can measure that. We can put things in place and you can tick them off. I was like, I like the sound of this. And we kind of established that all this stress that I was feeling, it was because I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't really have a handle on certain things. I had a great team operationally. So it wasn't that things were going wrong. It was more that I didn't have complete clarity on where we were going, what the vision was, who the team should be, etc., etc. So we planned out this 2 days of getting this clarity and what have you. And I have to say, for me, Julie, who became my COO after that event, she naturally rose to the top. She was the one in there thinking strategically. She got it straight away. She was leading the team naturally. And I was kind of like, wow, I've never had this before. And she's been here all along, and I didn't even realize she was so amazing. And it came from there, really. And that was my transformative moment, if you like, of realizing that I don't have to do it alone. And in fact, I shouldn't be doing it alone. And I'm sure as we go on in this podcast, that kind of strategic relationship is key. And that was kind of the 2 days that changed my life, if you like, of when I realized that I needed to have a great person by my side, going on the journey with me, really.
Yeah, I love that, because I think I've had the great fortune to know Emma for quite a long time. So I've seen that journey that you've been on. And I remember the sort of pre-days when you didn't have that setup. And then from my perspective as a kind of bystander to that story, watching your super success that kind of came from that pivotal moment. So I want to dive into that to get that realization. But I love the fact that you described that sort of, you were preparing for the strategy meeting and so on. Take us just in the run up to that, rewind us slightly from that. What did it feel like as the CEO in the business before you had that clarity over, actually, I now need this number 2 in my business?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of overwhelm. And I would choose the word overwhelm actually more than stress, because I'm not really somebody who, I can manage my stress a lot, if you like. Not always, but mainly. But definitely overwhelm. Definitely that feel of loneliness, of it's all on me and I don't know where to go. And we have the same coach, so it was great to have Kevin as there by my side. And he really challenged a lot of beliefs I had around, you know, how we are as business owners. No one's going to do it as good as me. No one's going to be as quick as me. And we're just so wrong on all those beliefs. We are so wrong. And when you find this right person, you get that relationship right. You realize that. But yes, for me, it was definitely overwhelmed, and that sense of not helplessness, but treading through tree colours. Is it ever going to get any better? Are we ever going to make progress? Are we ever going to make it? I mean, I have all these ideas, as we do as crazy business owners and all that and it just all felt like a pipe dream. And it felt, I wouldn't say I felt unsuccessful, but I definitely didn't feel successful. And whatever successful is, define that as being happy, define it as being content or working towards a goal. None of those things felt real for me. It all felt very much out of control. And that was it. And what we do as business owners, not everybody, but what tends to happen is when we feel out of control, our natural reaction is to get more control, and to then for that plays out in micromanagement or kind of people being stifled because you want to kind of get hold of everything. And the solution really is to not. The solution is to put the right people in place so that you can relinquish control and focus where you need to be. So all that kind of natural instinct is actually the opposite to what we need to be doing.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting as well, because I think that when we talk about you kind of feel like you need, I suppose you need structure. Like you need, as you say, when you're dealing with the overwhelm, you clearly need the structure, but the temptation is to approach, I need structure, with let me get control. And as a result, that's where things like micromanagement set in. It's where you become a bottleneck for everything because everything has to go through you, or you're the only person that feels like they can do the things. And so the mistake is then thinking, oh yes, I'm removing the chaos because I've got control. And actually it's like, no, you don't want the control. What you want is structure to stop the chaos. And structure can come through having established what are the roles in your business, getting people and resourcing into those roles, setting out your processes, you need clarity and roles and accountabilities and all these sorts of things, scorecards. Like that's how you get the structure, rather than, and I think it's nuanced. I think because you could equally say, oh, well, isn't that control and so on? And I think that cloudiness, I like the way that you're putting that, is that cloudiness can lead the business owner down the wrong track. They can think, oh yes, I'm creating structure, I'm creating control, and yet they're actually taking themselves further away from the desired result because they become more needed to the day-to-day and all those sorts of things, rather than being able to let go. I suppose the reverse is also true, and I'm sure you've seen this, where the CEO wants those structures and things, but sees that as so not their bag that they kind of abdicate, and as a result, they don't get that result either. Is that something that you've kind of seen? I know that's not your tendency or mine.
But do you know what though, Alexis? It can be. It's
Really
a fine balance between too much control and abdication. And this is when I'm coaching people. It's that balance, because you relinquish day-to-day control, and those people are still human. Those people are still I love the line of when we talk about accountants and things, like, are accountants human? Do humans make mistakes? Therefore, accountants make mistakes. So don't abdicate your accounts to your accountant. Take responsibility for the finances, learn it, and get yourself financially literate. It's the same when you're running a team and a great leadership team. You can't just say, oh, that's great, there you go, I'm off to the beach. You've got to have, and that's where all your systems come in place and things like the scorecards and what have you. And there's a cost to both sides, because if you take your eye off the ball, it's not a case of, it's so much this, you know this with what you do and with processes and what have you, and you keep us in line with AirManual and what have you on all that side. You have to have everything. You can't just appoint one great person and then abdicate responsibility to them, because the cost to that can be that person makes a mistake, or that person just isn't taking the business where, if you don't have that alignment and that clarity, they take the business somewhere where you never intended it to go. The opposite side, which is also really costly, is that micromanaging, because nobody enjoys that. And even the business owners that micromanage, they can't say, I'm sure, oh, I love to meddle, I love to micromanage, I love to have that control over the people. So the risks are, you're in a place where no one enjoys it and you lose. You can recruit an amazing COO. If you don't lead them properly and abdicate, you'll lose them. If you micromanage them, you'll lose them. Also, if you're doing that, for me, it's a certain kind of crazy. It's like, oh, let me pay you to do a job, but let me do it also, because I don't trust you. Yeah, it's kind of like, so it's a fine balance. And the balance doesn't come just from deciding to. That's part of it. That first step, I think, is just deciding to. But you've got to have all the things in place, everything set up, and not perfect, but certainly set up. Because if you don't have it all, then it can be a very costly mistake if you don't get it right.
Yeah, indeed. I see that completely. And so for us, I think that I know from our other separate conversation, we're very aligned on the difference between a CEO and a COO role and the likely personality traits that each of them might possess, what they value, how they like to work, and so on. But for a lot of people, there isn't that clarity of distinction. And particularly if you're in a business where you haven't fully set up a sort of number two head of ops, director of ops, COO type role, you might, as the business owner, feel like, well, I'm the CEO and the COO. How do I split this? Because one of the challenges I've seen for a lot of CEOs or owners of businesses is they think, oh, yes, I need a clone of me to free up my time. And actually, that's not true.
No.
And yeah, that's a nightmare. So help us sort of pull that apart. What's the distinction, as you would see it, between the CEO role and the COO role?
Yes, and there is a very clear distinction. And before we do that, I think it's important to think about, as a business owner, where is your time best spent? And it's best spent on high leverage activity. So it is a time working on strategy. It's a time working on the business, strategic partnerships, joint ventures, investment, the financial, keeping that healthy, the culture, all those kind of things. That's where your time is best spent. And the operational side, if you think about that person, it tends to be the sort of yin to your yang. So you don't want to recruit someone like you. You want to recruit somebody who might be painful for you, might be the pain, the kind of thorn in your side. The amount of times that Julie, my COO and co-founder of the Accelerator program, is like, the amount of times I said, I've had an idea. It's like, no, like a great idea at the wrong time is a bad idea. Even last night I said, oh, been thinking about this. Like, no, like we're not doing that. We have to stay focused. And that's what a great COO is. So if you think about the two roles, the CEO is the one that's got the vision. It's working on the strategy. The COO is the one that executes on the plan. And it's the one that says, okay, I've got clarity over the plan. So Emma, where are we going? What are we doing? What does it look like? What needs to happen by when? Where do we need to be 12 months from now? What does that look like in the next 90 days? Let me write my 90-day plan, present it to you. Let's agree it. And off they go and execute on the plan. And yes, have the crazy ideas. Yes, be that sounding board for them all. Yes, go off sometimes and go, that could be a really good idea. Let me go and research it and come back to you and then probably tell you why it's a really bad idea. I'm like you, Alexis, we have 100 ideas in the shower and some of them are really good. I'm not saying that we don't have great ideas, because that's what gets the business started, it's what propels it, etc. But I think we're sometimes kind of like, not, I don't mean this derogatory, like head in the sky, but the one that's kind of got that vision. The COO is feet on the ground, making it happen, keeping the business grounded. So they're very, very different roles and responsibilities and accountabilities and what have you. But that's, for me, if you've got the stellar COO second in command, they're there running the business day to day, making sure it all happens, being the manager while you might be the leader, keeping the culture alive, keeping the system going, kind of, if you like. It's that and constantly moving the business forward. Whereas that's what's different to having just maybe a head of something or a manager of something. It's kind of, the role is to execute on your vision.
Nice. Yes. And I think that gives a really clear distinction between that, the CEO doing, as you said, the more strategic and the visioning and so on, versus the COO getting stuff done, and in many cases just keeping things going, keeping all the cogs moving and greased and so on, and making sure that you're hitting your metrics. And I think that makes a big difference. And one of the things that I think is interesting is, I think it can be tempting for a business owner to say, well, what am I? Oh, I'm the CEO. And the truth is that if you haven't got someone dedicated to the COO or have that as an accountability, then you are it. Like, you are the CEO and the COO if you don't have anyone else doing that as the business owner. And that's fine. Like, that's how you run the business for quite a long time, right? Mm-hmm. Until you get to a point where actually just keeping the business running and then basically project managing all of your biggest priorities across the business is enough of a full-time role, or at least very nearly. And therefore, I think when you get to that point, if you don't bring in your number two there, you as the business owner spend very little time as CEO. And that's one of the things I almost see, is that business owners almost lose the ability to see that they should split it, because they lose track of how much time they should be spending on the CEO piece, almost like that's just an added bonus. And I see them almost worry that if they do delegate the COO role, that what will I do then? And so for clients that you've worked with, where once they put in this role, like, have you got perhaps either a personal story, a case study, or whatever, where you've seen the transformation that then has, and how those people then spend their time?
Yeah, and I mean, the key thing is, this was one of my really big fears about having somebody in that place, because it was a sense of, but if I delegate this role to you, what will I do? And the trick is, because your time, it's like a vault, isn't it? It's kind of, as soon as you hand over, more stuff just flies straight in and you are still busy. The trick is making sure you fill your time with the right stuff, the high leverage stuff, not just being busy, or not, twiddling your thumbs and then meddling and the whole micromanaging we're talking about. So it's really important that you have that plan of, okay, when this person's in position, how we're going to run the business together, how we're going to work this partnership, and how we're going to make sure that me as business owner does spend time on the growth and the strategy and what have you, and the high leverage stuff. And one thing I would say about the role of COO, for me, I find it the most trickiest role in the business, because if you imagine every single business owner in the world, we all have a different vision for our business. Yep. You have one for yours, I have one for mine. If the COO's role is to execute our vision, that means that every single job is different, because they're executing a different thing. So whilst there's lots of skills that are the same, and lots of attributes, lots of systems that are the same, and processes that are the same, you're still doing something different. So if you imagine when you go into a job as chief finance officer or chief marketing officer, there's kind of a standard job description. If you were looking, I'm a CFO, I'm going up there, most job applications will look quite similar, just with different challenges based on industry, size of business. For COO, it's completely different every single time. And that's what the tricky thing is. So it's kind of making sure that you have a plan for your time, but also having a plan for how you're going to communicate with, delegate properly. And the challenge as well is, it's a very different role. So you don't always have the skills to be the one that teaches them. It's kind of, when Julie
Yeah.
came to the role for me, it was like, Emma, what do I do? And I was like, well, I don't know. I've never had a COO before. I just know that we need one and you're it. So kind of work it out. And that was one of the hardest things. And Julie had to just like literally read books because there was nothing that there's exec coaching and she was certainly having coaching, sort of business coaching. But for that specific role, there was nothing out there. And she just had to go and get books and create her own plan and come to me and go, I think this is what the job is. And we've definitely learned by making mistakes, getting it wrong, doing it again, trying again, and evolving. So everything we've learned, we didn't kind of just know it one day. We've spent 5 years holding this relationship and getting to the point where we are now.
Yeah, and I think the reason that you set up the COO Accelerator, right, is because you saw this gap, which I fundamentally agree with, that is there, which is you want your COO to be able to do a stellar job, like the second most important role in the entire business, and yet there's very little out there in terms of the training guidance. I think, as you say, when you go department by department, there's marketing, there's finance courses. I interviewed Kevin Appleby from Grow CFO. Or stuff exists for your CFO, but not for your COO. And so I love the fact that you created the COO Accelerator to fill that gap and provide that training, that coaching and support to COOs. For you, then once you had Julie in place, she's learning to be a COO and so on. What did that then mean for your sort of personal life, your experience of how you spent your time? You talked about having to sort of almost force yourself a bit to block the time to do the strategic things. What transformation did you notice over time for you personally?
Yeah, on the personal front, it's just the antidote to everything I said earlier. Don't get me wrong, you're still running a business. There's still stress, there's still anxiety, there's still problems. But without that busy mind, you can deal with problems and also act on opportunities much better, because how often it's like, we see a great opportunity, but we're too busy doing the doing. And you see it a lot in very small businesses where they win a piece of work, then they deliver the piece of work, and then the money that they make, they have no more business. They've got to go back to the cycle. So they're spending the money they've made on living because they've got to go back and go, oh, let's get another customer. And it's really, that kind of stuff is really, how old is the book E-Myth? Is that same principle? It's you get the team around you. So for me, definitely just having someone by my side and not having to worry about it. It's twofold. It's one about the management of the team. One is, having someone there on the ground, making sure things are happening the way they are. But for us, putting the processes in place and then standardizing how we do things to make sure that I don't then panic. Are things being done to a certain standard? I know they are, because we have the things in place and I have Julie to check. Things like the system. So all things like our company scorecards and the way we run meetings and the way we run one-to-ones, that's all standardized. So I can be anywhere in the world. I've regularly taken a month off work. And that, I guess that's the biggest impact to your personal life, is being able to leave the country for a month. I don't even live in the same country as the team anymore. They're all based in the UK. I'm based in Spain. So the fact that I can live wherever I want to live and still know what's happening at any moment in time, I can check, where are we on numbers? Where are we on this? What's being done here? How much? In events, we actually do exhibitions, so it's capacity. How much more capacity do we have? So what's the maximum revenue we can generate from this event? All that is just at my fingertips. So it's not just about, oh, hey, you've got some support, and isn't it great because they'll be by your side? It's that everything's happening. I know it's happening. I know it's been done to the right standard. I know the business is moving forward. And then professionally for me, that means I can work on high leverage activity. So that might be doing podcasts. It might be writing books. It might be all the stuff that I can do once and it's out there forever. Strategic partnerships. I don't want to say networking as in going to networking events, but being in the right place at the right time to meet with people we can joint venture with or have ideas, having the business coaching, doing the learning, all those things I can now spend time on that really sort of shift the business forward much more. For me, it's all about that leverage. You have to leverage your COO, you have to leverage the team, you have to leverage your assets. And you can't do that if you're in the weeds doing everything, because you can't even see it, never mind actually do it. So that's the biggest thing for me. And in terms of a personal experience, if you like, this is something that you and I talk about quite a bit. And Julie doesn't mind me sharing this story, but Julie's been with me in the business. It's her 10th year anniversary this year. Up until 2 years ago, so the first 8 years, Julie has been on the kidney transplant list. So we always knew that anyone, not even knew, we always hoped and dreamt of the day when she would get a phone call, say, we've got a kidney, drop everything, get to hospital, and you're out for 3 months. And that's if it goes well. Yeah. So we had to build a business knowing or hoping at the time that Julie would get that call. 2 years ago, she did. She was out for 3 months and the business ran. It didn't fall apart. It didn't, because everybody knew what they were there to do. Everyone filled in the scorecards. Everyone still had meetings. Everyone knew what was expected of them. Everyone had their 90-day plans. All those things, if they didn't know how to do something, the process was written. All that kind of stuff is done. And the reason why you and I talk about it is because we had the gift of hindsight, because we knew that one day this would happen. How many of us run our business going, yeah, one day I'll get round to that. One day I'll do this. And then something happens. And Julie always said, we always talk about that. What if someone gets hit by a bus? And Julie always said, I don't like saying that. She always says, like, what if they win the lottery and just leave? And it's like, yeah, what if? Yeah. And the amount of business owners, because it's such a close relationship, there's the CEO and COO, they go, but they'll never leave me. Like, but it might not be their choice. And it's sad and it's hard to think that, but it might not be their choice. Or they might get an opportunity that's just bigger than you, like winning the lottery, like an amazing job overseas. Or they might have parents that are getting older that need looking after. Or it might be, there's a million and one reasons why that person might want to stay and love you and love working with you and share that ambition and share the end goal, still might not be there for the whole journey. And you've got to build your business with that in mind.
Yeah, I love the point there around you've got to put that in place because you don't know when it's going to happen. I like the reframing around they win the lottery or get their absolute dream job offer rather than hit by a bus. I think sometimes that's helpful. But it reminds me of, I think it was episode 93, maybe 94 with Mike McAllowitz, where he talked about often it's frustrating, but often entrepreneurs need that cardiac arrest moment before they make the change that's needed. And I think, as you say, like you had the benefit of knowing we hope this is going to come at some point. And so we need to be ready for that. And I think the truth is that as business owners, we all know that at some point something will happen. So we all need to be ready for that. It's just that in your case, you had a much more specific thing to call it. And so I think, yeah, taking that action early is a massive testament to the work that you, but also Julie, put in so that the business could run without her for a couple of months. And I think that's amazing. One of the things that I'm also conscious of is you mentioned your other business, CHS Events, is in the events industry. Coronavirus will have had a huge impact on your business. I'm interested in firstly what happened, but then what did that mean for you and your relationship with Julie as the COO? Because I know businesses in both events and travel and hospitality that literally went under in that period. And as your COO is an employee ultimately, and yet at the point that the problem happens, they're also responsible for running the whole thing. They know where all the bodies are buried. They know which team members are working efficiently and not. So what did that look like as sort of February, March, April 2020 kind of unfolded on your business? And what did that mean for your relationship between you and Julie?
Yeah, it was. So COVID did hit us really hard. We were actually out for 18 months because of the timings of our events. We couldn't trade for 18 months. And what was difficult for people who aren't a lot of people who aren't in the industry, What made it harder was we kept getting start dates from the government. So you put your team on furlough, and not everybody could go because you've got to keep in touch with clients, you've got to keep communicating. So you've got no money coming in, but you still got to have somebody doing some work. And then the people who are on furlough, some people love it, some people hate it. So you've still got the team to manage, even though they're not at work. For me, I went into research mode and wrote a plan, and we called it our go, no go plan. And it was, if this happens, we go. If this doesn't happen, we don't go. Or all these different things. And it was, we get a date, we go. And it was all around social distancing. It was all around how many square meters, because it's okay to say you can have an event, but if you can only sell 1/3 of the space, you can't afford to put the event on because you haven't got the capacity. And if a venue's not big enough, all these different parameters. So it was a very stressful time. And when we were getting the sort of the dates to go, the team were coming back, and then they were going again. And so that first 6 months was hell on earth. It really was. And then when furlough was coming to an end, we did actually have to make a couple of people redundant. And we sat down, the team that was left, and said, what do we want to do? Do we want to try and do something? Do we want to try and go online? Or do we want to sit it out and do other stuff? And we all went and did something else, and all came back when we could. So that's, to me, a great testament to the team and our culture and our leadership, that everybody left and came back. What that meant for Julie and I was, it was actually her idea. It was her idea to say, hey, Emma, we've done this. We've put all this in place. Why don't we set up a company just through COVID to help people put all the things in place that we have done? And we got our first client, and that client actually gave us so much work. We didn't have the capacity to go and do it for anybody else. It was so much needed. So we spent, I think, 6 months, maybe longer. It all feels like a blur now, but it's kind of like trauma, how you cut out the COVID thing out of your brain, because it was so, the industry really suffered. But we went and we did that and proved the concept, if you like, that we can go in and teach people how to put the systems in place, how to put the process in place, how to make the tough decisions that you have to make, how to get the communication flowing. So we went to another company and did that, and we loved it. And from there, I did business coaching. I'm still coaching clients now. I've got do a lot of that in the States, which I absolutely love. And then the business came back. Meanwhile, I moved to Spain and then realized I could run the business from here. And then the events industry came back. Julie and I went back into the business, picked it up. Business, it's not quite business as usual, but kind of got back into our systems and rhythm of running the business. And how I then use my time was, it's kind of split between purely, I don't work in CHS Events day to day at all now. I just work on strategy, and I run the exec meetings, and I do some coaching with my exec team. Anything day to day, I'm not involved in. I'm doing the business coaching, and then we've launched the COO Accelerator, because that, to be fair, is where my passion is. I've seen us do it. I've seen us teach people. I'm coaching COOs alongside the business owners, and just seeing the transformation and that kind of the realization when they know how good it can be, when it can work, is just, it's so fulfilling and rewarding. But it's just amazing to see when you see two people making magic happen. It's just great. And it's kind of that, let's share it with the world. And that's why Julie and I, she's moved from COO to co-founder, because to be fair, this idea was hers, and we've put it into, and we're still doing very much the same thing. Me doing what I'm good at, the strategy, and her doing, but her story is evolving. Her journey's evolving too. So it's also beautiful for me to see the succession planning we have now in place for CHS, because now she's training her second in command to come up through the ranks. So when you see it evolve like that, it's just, for me, that's why I'm in business, is to see everybody flourish like that. I love the events, and I think even that, it's about the communication, the education, the learning, the community. And I think that's also key for the COO. If you think, we talked earlier about the chief marketing officer and chief finance officer, there are institutions that they are part of to get their qualifications, and they have their ongoing CPD, continuing professional development. So they have a network, they have other marketing people, or other finance officers. The COO's got nobody. And the CEO isn't really that compassionate because we don't really get the role. It's that. So just that community, that's what we're trying to provide as well, is that community of people who can mastermind, share ideas, bounce ideas, talk about their crazy bosses with all their crazy ideas and work out how to stop the train coming towards them sometimes. So for me, you might go, how do you go from events to coaching? It's the education, sharing experiences and community. That's the thread, I think, that runs through it.
Really nice. And I see it as quite a common sequence of events for a business owner where they sort out the second in command role, they put in that COO, they develop them over time, they get to a point where the business is able to run day to day without that involved. And as you got to a point where even the COO wasn't involved day to day and could take months out. But it's interesting that once you get to that point, it means that the CEO has a choice. They can continue to innovate and be strategic to drive that business, or they can do what you did, and in fairness, what I did, where like in my case, I have got another software business in Spider Gap that I built to a certain point, got my CEO, got it all set up and running without me, so that I've then been able to spend time on AirManual, and in your case, so that you can spend time on the COO Accelerator. What does that then mean for the business that it's tempting to use the word that you leave behind, but I know that that's not how it feels and that's not the reality, but it could look like that from the outside. So what does that mean for that business? Because to some extent, does it end up without a CEO either forever or for a period? And what's the impact of that? What did you do to make sure that it didn't end up rudderless or lost or going downhill, because it's continued to grow and succeed? So speak to that for me and around how you did that.
It's a great question, because I can't say that I got that right immediately. Because the reality is, if you've got especially as a small business, you've got a really close-knit team who may or may not love each other, really love working together, and then you physically leave. You never mentally leave. Your business is your livelihood, but you physically remove yourself from the office, if you like. People can miss you, and I think that's what I got wrong. It's they missed spending that time with me. We do a lot of work on the love languages. When people join our team, we get and some people's love language is quality time. And for people who loved spending time, or just wanted to kind of have that energy, if you like, that the CEO brings, there was an element of, Julie would say to me, Emma, the team just miss you a little bit. It's like, right, okay, great feedback. Let's correct that. Let's put that right. So that's why I'm still involved in strategy. I still go. So even we have 2 big events a year, I still go to them. And because it's not just a team, don't forget, it's your customers as well. They want to see you. Julie and I are very aware right now that it's important that our customers don't feel that we've abandoned them to start a new business, because we haven't. We're just leveraging our time more effectively to create something new and share what we know. So it's a very fine balance between not abandoning ship and leaving. And I think a lot of it comes in the explanation, it comes in the communication, it comes in the still making sure that they have access to you, that they know what you're doing, that they're on board. Because we even had the conversation around to the team, it's like, this impacts you too, because having the second business, it's a career opportunity for you, because everybody who's operational gets to step up and move through the ranks, if you like. So there's that succession planning, and that's their time to shine in that role. But it's that everything's a balance, isn't it? It's abdication, micromanaging. It's abandoning ship and focusing on leveraging something else that you have, be a time, another asset, or what have you. And even so, this is going to be, I guess, me doing 2 things. When I talk to, as you do, like serial entrepreneurs that have multiple businesses, that's my growth in my personal development, because I don't know how people do that. I don't know how people spread their time between. I have like the coaching that I'm doing on a one-to-one basis. I have this, that's all kind of very similar. And I have the events, and it's still, for me, I've got to appropriate my time, if you like. I can't flip from one thing to the other. I can't, and I do a lot of time blocking. That's how I manage my time. And as a team, I'm always saying, don't forget to do your time blocking. If you've got to work on even different events, different projects, different clients, you've got to block your time and get focused and do what you're there to do. So yeah, that's part of my journey. I'm at this point now and I know how to do this, but sometimes you don't know how to get to the next level until you're there. And it maybe links back to that, what do you do with your time? It's because you don't know until you're there what you're capable of.
True. And it strikes me that essentially where you've ended up is it's not that you're removed from your events business as the CEO. You are still CEO there. It's just that it's fractional. It's a fractional role where you're spending some of your time, albeit a very light amount, i.e. attending the main events, making sure that you share a little bit of face time amongst the team so that they still feel loved, and probably still having the odd conversation with Julie about what's the direction of that business and what's happening. But it's fractional. It's not full-time like it was. And I've found that too with the bigger your business grows, the longer the projects and so on that needs to happen, but the bigger the opportunities of them. But as a result, it doesn't need the same level of drive and strategic thinking, right? It's a little bit like having a designer and a builder. You do get to a point where the builders can only build so fast. So if your designer keeps on designing more, they're coming up with years of build work that the builder's never going to get around to. And so I think it can work that way. I think there's also a counter argument that says, oh, but could you take that events business and say, okay, CEO, I want you to go full time again and work out how do you 10x this business over the next 3 years and spend time thinking there and working on partnerships. But at the same time, like, that's not necessarily why we went into business, right? We love the impact, we love the doing things. And of course, you can identify new things that you want to do. And so if you're able to do that, I think that's great. So I can see that journey and how you've gone on that. One of the things that I think will probably be useful for people, perhaps they're business owners, they're CEOs, perhaps they're looking at how do they get an effective COO in place, a number two, so that they can do what we're describing, that they can make their business more resilient, that they can extract themselves from the business, give themselves more free time, or even long term, give them the opportunity to work on other projects, other businesses, be a serial entrepreneur, and so on. Assuming someone's at that point, they're making that decision, they take on board what you said earlier around you're going to need that structure and so on. They now need to hire the right person. And often one of the questions I'm asked is, okay, what skills, what traits, what attitudes should I be looking for from a COO? And I know that given the work that you have with clients and how successful you've been at it in the past, what a good COO tends to look like. So what would you recommend that they look for? How would you recommend that they assess for that as part of their recruitment process?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many skills. It's that conflict resolution. It's the writing strategic plans, 90-day plans, leading meetings, leading one-to-ones, all that practical stuff, the leadership management skills, all those things. There's so many what we call core strengths, if you like, that COO needs. The skills might be kind of things that are opposite to yours. So uber organized, likes everything in a place. It's all, and this is, I think, the resistance for business owners to do things like processes. You come across this. It's kind of, the business owner doesn't want to do processes. It's like, why? We didn't go into business to write down everything that we do. It's kind of, it's not our, so it is that yin to your yang. It's kind of all the things that like make you feel like you're working through treacle, if you like. So in that sense, and we talk a lot about that hiring for culture, but the first thing for me is absolutely having clarity on what your vision is and what needs to happen like to execute it, because that's their job. So I often say to people on a really practical level, for 2 weeks, write down everything that you do, like a reverse to-do list. Like, oh, I've taken that call, write it down. Or I'm answering my own emails. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes, and this is the thing as well, a CEO is not a PA and a PA isn't a CEO. Mm-hmm. So some things that are practical that you're doing, you might go, actually, I'm not ready for a COO. I'm ready for a really good PA that can take away all the admin and all the things that a great PA does, before getting a CEO, if you like, COO, sorry. Or just second in command. You don't have to have the grand title. It's somebody basically who is there to execute your vision. So definitely that cultural alignment. And I think one of the big perhaps differences, and certainly where the role is going, if you like, it's that ability to think strategically. So if you're recruiting within, for me, when we had that team away day, it was 2 days, but that strategic planning, Julie naturally rose to the top. She was thinking long term. She was thinking strategically. The timing of it wasn't great because we were in the middle of a really big planning a big event, and it was interesting how some people were still very tactical, and all I could think about is, yeah, that's great, but I've got stuff to do. Being able to like lift above the parapet, if you like, and say, I see where we're going. I see what needs to happen. So skills like being able to write strategic plans and implement the plans and the 90-day plans and all that kind of stuff is really, really key. But to recruit for them, you may find somebody. I mean, Julie always says to me, Emma, I couldn't just walk into another job in COO and do it. There'd be a learning curve for me because it's executing your vision. So to a degree, you've got to learn on the, as you do it kind of thing. But definitely it's that implementation. It's that taking everything you can do and making it happen. And that's the key thing. That's the job, if you like. It's taking the vision and making it happen. And that's why you've got to get clarity first on. And if you haven't got clarity, then there's ways you can get that. But if you don't want to recruit somebody and go, yeah, I don't know where we're going either. That's kind of, it's that, absolute clarity. And then having all those skills. And it's things like being able to delegate definitely effectively, because even though you've got to get processes and systems in place and what have you, you're not the one that's doing it all. You're the one that's just effectively making everything go to plan, if you like. So it's not, there's a lot of admin stuff that needs doing, but you're not the one that's doing it. You're the one that's just getting us there.
Yeah, and so I can totally see how, as part of your recruitment process, you could essentially set up a sort of task where the candidate is given an idea, a sort of direction, and their job is, right now, break that down into some strategic priorities. Okay, now break that down into the 90-day plan and talk me through how you would envisage implementing that in the business. And given some pre-read around, here's the org structure, here's the roles that we've got, and so on. And I guess whether or not they get the right answer is not the important thing. It's seeing their thinking. It's seeing how they approach it and how do they break it down. And does it make sense? Does their plan make sense, even if you don't agree with it or they're lacking some knowledge, so that you can sit there going through that journey and have that clarity? And with the added bonus, of course, if the idea that you share with them at the start is a real one you have, then worst case scenario, you'll come away with an interesting idea of how to implement that in your business. So I think I can see how,
like, that decision-making skills is crucial. And when I say that, I don't mean the ability to make a decision, as in being decisive. It is the research, it's the thinking it through, it's the working it out. So I say to my team, it's like, hey, if you don't know what to, don't come to me and ask me what to do. That's not what I'm here for. Brainstorm, talk to a colleague, work it out. Work out what you think is the best way forward. And if I'm not available, you make the best decision with the information you have at the time. And if it's the wrong one, we'll talk about why it's wrong. I won't get cross. I'll be grateful that you can show how at school, show you're working out. It's kind of show how you got there. So that it's the analysis that you need. That's what a good COO has. It's the ability, it's administrative to fill in your scorecards. It's what that scorecard tells you. It's it's the analysis of the data, spotting the trends, looking ahead and going, hang on a minute, if we need to be there in 90 days and it's day 45 and we haven't even started, or we've got the bottleneck, or it's the constant team management of those conversations that just need to be, hey, I can't move forward because this hasn't happened in this department. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I can't move forward because of this. Okay, we're not going to get there. And working out. And that's what there's two things I say to second in commands when I'm coaching them. And that one is, it's the ability to analyze and see what's coming up, if you like. And it is the analysis of the data not just documenting it and not just running the meetings. If something's not going to plan, you've got to fix the right problem. And if you have the data correctly laid out in front of you, you can. And a great idea is marketing. Or we haven't made enough sales. Or it must be the salesperson's fault. Well, hang on a minute. How many leads did they get? Or what's the quality of the leads? Oh, we've changed suppliers. We've got more leads coming through, but the quality is less good. Okay, so let's dig deeper on that. Let's stop blaming the salesperson. So you're solving the right problem using data as opposed to blaming. And no one loves a blame culture, and that's why you have these things in place. The second thing I come up against quite a bit is that being able to prioritize. Because if you've got a business that you're firefighting and everyone goes to COO, and when you get that position in place, everyone's like, oh, great, we've got someone to go to. It's not the boss that we can just kind of offload everything onto. So you've got to be a very strong person to be able to push back and say, no, that's your job, that's not for now. And it's that sense of discipline. It's the short-term things that need doing right now versus the long-term things that will give us the best leverage. And it's that, my boss wants me to do this, but I can't do that because I'm too busy doing this. Like, no, that's not your job. Your job isn't to do this. Your job is to focus on what's going to move the business forward, execute the plan, do the analysis. If you really can't do everything, write a strategic case for, we need, and again, you go, we need more people. Well, do we need more people? Or do we need better systems? And that's what the role of the COO is, to present you with I've done the analysis. I think this is the best way forward. We don't need to spend more money here. We need to invest some money there. And that's what a great COO will give you back your time by only presenting you with solutions, only presenting you with progress reports, trend analysis, all that kind of stuff, so that you say, right, that's great. I'm happy focusing on the vision, the strategy, the high leverage stuff. So for me, that's what a great COO does, is they give you back your time, but not in that abdication way, not in that sense of, don't worry, I've got it under control. You go for strategize for a month in the Bahamas. You've got to have everything in place.
They've actually got it. Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Emma. Your insight on this area is so deep and also well experienced. You know exactly how this works and work with so many businesses doing it. So thank you for taking the time to share that with us today. Quick question then is, how can people learn more from you and from the COO Accelerator? What resources would you recommend to anyone that's either looking to bring in a COO or looking to upskill their COO, or perhaps even to cover some of the specifics that we talked about that need to be in place, such as, I know that you've got a great guide on how to create a good company scorecard, for example. So give us some of the resources and we'll make sure that we link them in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you. So LinkedIn, I'm Emma King, and Julie is Julie Phillips, co-founder of the COO Accelerator. The website is COO-accelerator.com. But what people might be more interested in is how to get their hands on our free guide of how to produce a company scorecard, how to use it, how to make sure that it's giving you that information that you need, and a template, obviously, because we all want a shortcut. Nobody wants to do this from scratch. It's freecompanyscorecard.com. So just freecompanyscorecard.com, and then you'll be in our network and what have you, and you can download that, get instant access. And yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it certainly is. And thank you so much for coming and sharing where you're at in that journey and all the insight that you've shared. And I highly recommend people check out that guide. Emma sent it over to me to get me to take a look at it and see what I thought. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I thought the 5 steps are absolutely spot on, and the template is really good and valuable and in line with the way that I've structured it, both in my multiple businesses, but also other businesses that I've coached and supported in the past. So as a result, now I don't need to send them one. I can just point them there. So freecompanyscorecard.com. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Emma, for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you. I've loved talking to you.
Fantastic. Now, to make sure that your business is set up to effectively free up your time and can work smoothly and work when you've got your COO and so on, one of the things that's absolutely crucial to have in place is the ability to delegate more effectively, to put the structures, the processes and so on in place in your business so that it can operate without you, and that your team can do things the way that you want them to do, that they can do things right every time. And so if you're looking to learn how to do that, how do I do a really good job of delegating and handing over these tasks, then you should check out the recording of a masterclass that I ran on how to free up 15 hours per week and unlock your growth. You can find out more and get access for free at airmanual.co/webinar. And a final thing to say is thank you so much for listening to this episode, and hopefully for listening to others. Please do like, subscribe, all the stuff that you're meant to do. Actually, no, please do it. It genuinely makes a difference. And also, I'd really, really appreciate it if you found this episode in particular valuable. Please do share it out there and explain with a little social post or whatever. Just say why you found it valuable, or share it with someone else that you think would benefit from it. Or if you're thinking, yeah, no, I love this episode, but I'm not sure who to share that it would be relevant for, instead perhaps share episode 100, in which we shared a load of our best bits, favorite bits from previous 99 episodes. So please do share the podcast. We hugely appreciate it. It makes a big difference for our ability to help people. So thank you in advance for doing that. But otherwise, until next time, have fun.